Hello, good evening, and welcome back to the Chronicles of a Gooner. It's the fans phone in, brought to you by the last man standing with loserpool.com. As ever, I'm your host, Harry Symeou, and on this edition, we'll be reflecting on a very, very disappointing evening in Baku. Arsenal absolutely slaughtered in the end in the UEFA Europa League final. A very, very disappointing way to end the season. I don't really know what to say about it. There's been lots of debate on social media, hasn't there? Lots of people throwing in their views, and that's what social media is for. So it's great. It's great to share opinions with different people, and that's why we set up this show. We want to hear from you guys, the listeners. We appreciate the fact that you guys tune into this podcast every week, and so we wanted to do something in return for you and give you guys the platform where you can voice your opinions. Now, just before I go to the first call, because we've got lots and lots of calls to get through this evening, so you're going to have to bear with me. If you've put your number down, I will get to you. I promise. I fully expect this evening's show to go over the hour mark, but that's absolutely fine. I've got nowhere to go, so we'll make sure that we get through to every single one of your calls. But before I do that, I just want to say my piece. And I mean, I'm someone who, from the very beginning, has not been totally convinced about Unai Emery. And I've taken an absolute shitload of abuse for that on social media, on YouTube, everywhere. And, that's absolutely fine. It's part and parcel of what I do. I accept that there are going to be people with me, people that disagree with me, and that's absolutely fine. Got no issues with that. But what I will say is, think about those comments that I made back in December when I said I wasn't sure about Unai Emery and all the points that I made. Fast forward to the end of the season, and that opinion, does it seem so outrageous now? Probably not. And that's kind of my point. I've made this point from the off. I'm not flip-flopping. I've said this all along. I haven't changed my view, and I haven't seen enough to suggest that I should change my view. So I'm going to stick by it. And I want you guys to come on and let me know your thoughts. I'm happy for you to disagree with me. It's absolutely fine. That discussion is good for the soul, especially after a night like last night. Right, let's get on to our first call without further ado. Just a quick reminder, if you do want to jump on and you haven't put your number down already, you need to DM us on Twitter at Chronicles_AFC with your number if you're based in the UK. If you're outside of the UK, we need a Skype ID and we will get hold of you that way. But if we can't get through to you first time, we will move on because we've got so many calls. And unfortunately, that has to be the case. We've also activated the super chat button if you're watching live on YouTube, which means that you can support the podcast if you wish to. It is not compulsory. So don't feel like you have to. Don't feel obligated. It is there if you want to help. If you don't, that's absolutely fine. We hope you enjoy the content. Right. Here we go. Let's go with the first call. Bear with me just a second. Here we go. Good evening. You're on the Chronicles of a Gooner, mate. How you doing? Introduce yourself, Craig. For those that don't know you, introduce yourself, mate.
Hello, everybody. My name's Craig. I'm the host of the Same Old Arsenal podcast, and I'm very, very depressed.
Mate, I mean, don't get me started. I mean, what are your thoughts on the game, the season as a whole? Let us know what you're feeling. Get it off your chest. That's what this show is for. It's almost therapy.
Yeah. Last night, mate, was an absolute disgrace from the top to the bottom. I've stayed off Twitter all day. I've stayed off Twitter all day contemplating stuff. And last night, I might have sent some knee-jerk tweets out about that it's not Emery's fault. But when I sit down and I look at it, he's got to be asked some questions. The last 6 weeks and last night, he's got to be asked some questions. Now, it's obviously not all Emery's fault. I'm not going to sit here and hang him out to dry because those players on that pitch last night were awful. I've never quite seen an Arsenal performance quite like that before. Losing 4-1 in a Europa League final and so easily, that's what hurt me the most. So easy. None of them looked like they wanted to be there. It looked like a pre-season friendly. So disappointing. If Emery is here really to make a thing of Arsenal and to make his name You know, put his name in lights at Arsenal. He has got to get back to London, and he has got to axe the people that will not do the things he wants to do. He's got to be ruthless.
Like who, Craig? Who would you axe?
Oh, it pains me to say this, right? But if a good offer came in for Aubameyang, it's got to be looked at.
Okay.
If a good offer came in for Mesut Ozil, it's got to be looked at. If a good offer came in for Granit Xhaka, it's got to be looked at.
So what you're saying is basically that the squad is in such dire straits that we need to look at anybody that could bring in some money. We need to consider offloading them.
Absolutely. Look, the Mesut Ozil debate, that's for another time, but he's earned, I don't want to keep going on about it because 350 grand a week that bloke's earning. He is just not doing it, Harry. He's not. I put a tweet out before the game. I wanted to see the Mesut Ozil last night. What did I get? Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
It's hard to disagree, mate. It's hard to disagree. And you know as well as anybody that, you know, I've defended him this season. But after last night, it's impossible to.
Yeah, absolutely. And Aubameyang. How many more chances? All right, he won the Golden Boot, okay. But let's be real. The chances he's missed, he should have won the Golden Boot by 15 clear goals.
Yep.
And last night, you know, he buries that one of, what was it, the 10th minute? He buries it. It's a different game.
Absolutely.
You know, it's just how many more. I don't want to. I hate doing this, slagging off the players. I really do. But something's got to happen. It's got to happen fast. It's either, I hate to say it, it's either we change the manager now, which I don't think would be the answer, or Emery has got to come back to London, go into his office, get a list of name of players, and just get rid of them, Unai. The ones that will not do what you want them to do, get rid. Bring in players that will, or start to bring in some players from the youth teams. I mean, a massive message sent out. I don't know if it's just me or other people, but he sent a massive message out there last night to Mesut Ozil, I think, taking him off for Willock and making. Do you know? Bringing him off, or was it Willock? I think it was Willock.
Yeah, it was.
Bringing him off for a teenager. You know, just get ruthless now. I've had enough of it. Wenger wasn't ruthless enough, cost him his job. If Unai Emery isn't going to be ruthless enough, I think it might cost him his job as well. He's got 1 year. He's got 1 year left. Do it, Unai. Just axe the rubbish, please, and bring in some players that will play the way you want to play.
Yeah.
Do you know? I don't know, mate. It's just so hurt. I've just been so hurting all day, you know.
I know how you're feeling, mate. I know how you're feeling, and I agree with most of what you said there. I think you make some great points. Craig, I'm going to have to move on because I've got a long queue of calls this evening.
Of course, mate.
Thank you so much, and I really appreciate it. And we'll be catching up on the same old Arsenal, won't we, on Monday?
We certainly will, sir.
Let people know how they can find it.
Or come and follow us on Twitter at Same Old AFC, and you can subscribe to the YouTube channel, The Same Old Arsenal. Just type it into the search bar, you will find it. And of course, your good self, Lee Judges and Graham, on it every Monday. Although this Monday's going to be the last one of the season because I think we all deserve a break.
Yeah, absolutely. Cheers, Craig. Speak to you soon, mate.
All the best, mate. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye. That was Craig from the Same Old Arsenal podcast. Very recognisable voice in the Arsenal podcasting community. Right, let me head over to our next caller. We're going to need to bang through these quickly tonight.
Hello,
good evening,
Harry.
mate. Welcome to the Chronicles of a Gooner. You're live. Introduce yourself. Where are you calling us from? Or where are we talking to you from?
Glenn from New York, otherwise known as the old man that screwed up his Skype call. I apologize for that.
That's absolutely fine, mate. How are you, first of all?
I'm fine. No, I'm not fine. I feel like fucking shit. And I'm sorry I was distracted before. I'm in the man cave, barricaded away from the kids. So, all right. Onward and upward. Real quick, I hate to open this can of worms, but Ozil, and I really would like your opinion on this.
Go for it.
Okay, I love him. Can you hear me?
Yep, go for it.
I love him like I loved Wenger. You know, and then Wenger fucking sold the Premier League title for $25 million to Manchester United, and I was done with him. Now, last night, Ozil, another disappearance. And I'm done with him. But I'm not going to, like, rant about him and curse him. It's just, I hope someone will buy him. If someone offered to buy him, would you sell him? That's my question.
I think if someone offered to buy him, I think we'd have to sell him. And look, I'm a huge Mesut Ozil fan. I always have been, and I've defended him right until the very end. But for me, last night was the final straw. It was the straw that broke the camel's back. You know, he just doesn't do it when we need him to. He just doesn't turn up. And there are a whole load of factors as to why that's the case. And I don't necessarily solely blame him, but it's pretty clear that if we're going to stick with Unai Emery, he's not going to get the best out of Mesut Ozil. They clearly don't get on, and I don't care what anybody says, they don't get on. They've got two completely different footballing philosophies, and it's just not working. Now, if we're going to talk about the club and the fact that our wages are so restricted, because that's what everybody seems to talk about all the time. It seems as though our fan base have all become qualified accountants this season. And, you know, but if that's the case, then, and an offer does come in, then you've got to move him on, because you need to free up funds to ensure that we can, you know, get the players in that we need, because it feels to me that missing out on the Champions League means that, again, we're going to be restricted financially. Do you agree?
Yes, I absolutely agree with everything that you just said. I actually slept on it before I even posted anything on social media about, I hope that someone buys him, because that's how much I love him. I wanted to sleep on it, you know, as mad as I was at him yesterday. And now today, please go. If you stay, I will support you, because that's what I do if you're wearing the kit. But God damn it, man, just get out. Get the fuck out. Please, somebody buy him. I want to ask you one other thing, please. Burkamp Wonderland, a show that we both enjoy.
Yep.
Josh came up with this theory that has been haunting my brain about German World Cup burnout. And he used a couple of Arsenal examples, Mertesacker retiring at 32, and now maybe Ozil won that World Cup, has his contract, and it's not there anymore for him. What do you think of that?
I've not heard the show, but the Burkamp Wonderland is a fantastic podcast. If you don't listen to it, make sure you do. Our good friend Danny, I think, is in the live chat as well at the moment. It is a great show, so do check it out. But in terms of the World Cup burnout,
it was Josh that said that, German World Cup burnout. And I think it's brilliant. And I think it's a real theory.
Yeah, it is a very valid theory. And I think I don't necessarily, I probably wouldn't call it burnout if it was me. I would more probably come from the angle that perhaps it is a lack of desire, having reached the very pinnacle of world football, having achieved the game's biggest prize. How do you then motivate yourself week to week? I think that is a problem more so than, you know, burnout as in physically. I think it's mental burnout. I think it's probably a lack of desire after that, because let's face it, once you've achieved that with your country, what more is there to do in football? What is bigger and better than that? Probably nothing.
No, I agree. And just one last thing, because this might be the last time we speak until next season. Thank you for your amazing shows that you've done all season long. You are an amazing talent, and you really rock that beard. When I first saw you, you didn't have a beard. You look like you should be a soldier in Spartacus. You just kick ass with that beard. You and Graham both have the best fucking beards, you know, and you know what? If you get Lee Judges to grow a beard, he'd look like fucking Gandalf. How awesome would that be?
I'll tell him. I'll definitely be telling him.
But dude, seriously, I fucking love your shit, man. That's all.
Thanks very much, mate. Really, really appreciate your kind words. And I'm sure we'll catch up again soon, Glenn.
Okay.
Cheers, mate. All the best.
Same to you. Bye-bye.
Some lovely words there from Glenn, a regular listener of the podcast. Massive thanks to him. Right, let's move on to the next call. Apologies, I am breezing through these, but we've got so many tonight. We need to get through them. Big hello to everybody watching live on YouTube at the moment. If you are, please hit that like button. It's really, really important that we get the likes. It helps the video go up the ranking. So we really, really appreciate that. Please do it. Also, if you're listening back on the podcast tomorrow morning, big hello to you guys as well. Of course, I know that not everybody can tune in live every time. So thank you to you guys for your support as well. Right, let's get on to caller number 3. Here we go. Evening, mate. You're on the Chronicles of a Gooner. Introduce yourself and where you contacting us from.
Hi, Harry. It's Pavlos. I'm calling from around the corner from you in Winchmore Hill, North London.
How you doing, mate? Welcome back to the show. How are you?
Well, I wasn't going to swear until I heard your last caller. I am absolutely fuming, and it's taken me 24 hours to calm down. And listening to the comments and reading them all, it's still not great. I'm just watching what we watched last night. I think for me has to be a turning point because it can't go on like it is, really, can it?
Well, I mean, you know, I don't want to sit here and sound like I'm gloating because I'm not. But I've been saying for months and months that Unai Emery, you know, for me, hasn't impressed. He hasn't convinced me. And this was always going to happen. This team aren't good enough. And I don't think they're being led by a strong enough leader.
I think you're spot on there. And I think in terms of, you've been very consistent, so fair play to you on that one. In terms of Emery himself, I was more of a kind of, look, we'll give him time into the season. He gambled massively on the Europa League. For me, it's, you know, he screwed up the league. I mean, when you've got to win one match against, I think it was the last four, we had to get 3 points, and we finished a point behind Spurs. So you think if we'd have won one of those matches, we wouldn't have needed last night. So to gamble and put all your eggs in the Europa League basket, you have to go out there and win it. And ultimately, for whatever reason, whether it's motivation, whether it's the players, whether it's strategy, we didn't do it last night. And so I tweeted last night in sort of fury that he has to go, or at least the questions have to be asked. And I stick by that. I think maybe not go, but I think I saw a tweet saying, would any other top four manager have been given the season we've had this season and not be under scrutiny? I think that has to apply for Emery. Yeah, he hasn't got us into the Champions League again. That was his mission. We screwed it up from a place where finishing less than fourth was almost impossible to whether we did finish fifth. You know, we got to the final of the Europa League and we were awful last night in the second half. I've never seen a capitulation like last night. And so we have to raise the question about whether Emery is that top-level manager that we need. And based on what we've seen this season, I don't think that's the answer.
Well, I mean, you could argue that he's failed to motivate his players at the crucial part of the season. And for me, that's a huge problem. But I think you're absolutely right in what you say, in the sense that any other manager in the top four or top six, whatever, would come under scrutiny. And the same people that were questioning the fact that Arsene Wenger wasn't held accountable are now not willing to admit that Unai Emery has to bear some responsibility. I've said it time and time again. There are lots of problems at Arsenal Football Club, stemming from the very top, the ownership, all the way down to the playing staff. You know, there are lots of problems. But
I think this is a club that is mediocre from top to bottom. It's happy to settle for second best or third best. If you look at the owner, he wasn't even there last night. I mean, if it was me and I owned a $1.5 billion asset, I'd be there at least to support the club. And that goes down to the two, sporting directors or whatever they're called now, Raul, Samlehi and Vinay, who again, all of this nonsense that they talk in the videos and the emails about how we want to compete, it's nonsense. And the more and more money people pay into the club, the more and more money is taken out of the club by those people. And I think it's about the time we said, actually, enough is enough. If you look at what Liverpool did a few years ago with their owners and where they are now, I know we're a different club and I know we've got different fans to Liverpool, absolutely. But, enough is enough. And I think that culture of mediocrity stems from the top. It goes all the way down to the manager who's under no real pressure, and it goes to the players. If you look at, again, then, rather than, I don't want to beat that, the Ozil drum again, but he was abysmal last night. And for me, it's a case of how much more can we tolerate? How much more mediocrity can we tolerate? How much more pandering to the, oh, but he's a good player? How much more kind of tolerating can we give before enough is enough? And we say, you know what? If you're not good enough, if you don't want to run about, if you don't want to earn your $350 a week, then you've got to go. And I know it's not as easy as that. We've got to find someone who wanted to buy Mesut Ozil.
Yeah,
but for me, he's indicative of he's indicative of that second best, of it has to be just right for him. And you look at players, and hate to say it, you look at Spurs, look at their players who would run through a brick wall for their club, for their manager. We don't have that manager, and we don't have those players. The worry I have is that we had to win last night to get back into the Champions League to stay competitive. We haven't. And so it's that self-fulfilling prophecy of every single year we're out of the Europa League, we fall further and further behind, which obviously has financial implications, but also in terms of the players. Who's going to want to come and play for Arsenal when you've got a coach like Emery who is second rate? You've got players who are allowed to kind of be mediocre, and an owner who doesn't really give a damn. And so I'm really worried for the next 5 or 10 years, as long as we have Kroenke, as long as this culture of mediocrity sort of permeates the club.
So if I gave you the power's in your hands now, and I said to you, stick with Emery next season, one more season, or get him out now, what would you do?
It's a tough question. For me, and despite what I've just said, I'd give him the summer. But that's on the proviso that actually something happened. Having said that, of course, I mean, it's a tough question because on the one hand, you say, we're not Chelsea, we don't fire willy-nilly, we don't fire after one season. On the other hand, you look at the summer, at Christmas time, what did we do? We bought Dennis Suarez, who played, not even 6 games for us. And so if that's what we're looking forward to, then by all means, get rid of it. It has to be the right coach, and it has to be the right person. And I don't trust, frankly, the powers that be at Arsenal to go out and get that right coach. I'd love someone, I don't know who I'd like, I don't know who's out there, who's available, but it has to be someone different. And if we do stick to Emery, he's got to prove that actually, he's ruthless enough to get rid of the nonsense we have in the squad. You look at someone like Mustafi, someone like Ozil, someone like El Neni, who'd be nowhere near Liverpool's team, nowhere near Man City's team, and nowhere near Spurs' team, to be honest. Is Emery the right man to get rid of those and to actually replace them appropriately? I don't know. And so if I had the power, it depends on who's out there. But if the right candidate is out there, then by all means, he should be moved on. What I think will happen in the next year for what it's worth, I saw Tim Stillman on Twitter saying this today, and I agree with it. I can see us having the same season next year, and I can see Emery being let go next year. And so, the question I'd have for you, Harry, is if you're going to have the same season next year, what would you do? Would you stick or twist?
If we had the same season next year, I'd absolutely twist. Because for me, I've said it for ages, he's not done enough. There's been some improvement, slight improvement. If we're being honest, we finished a few points higher up the league, etc., etc. But ultimately, we're still a defensive shambles. We're still awful on the road. We still got a soft centre. I feel that we've also lost a bit of creativity because we seem to be so reliant on wing backs providing all of our assists. But we're talking about.
If I see Kolasinac one more time get to the byline, he was awful last night. There was a moment about 10 minutes in, Kolasinac had 3 players to pick from and did nothing with it. And our strategy seems to have been this year: give it to Aubameyang, give it to Lacazette. If they can't do anything with it, give it to Kolasinac, whose final ball is abysmal. He might get 1 out of 10 to where he wanted to go, and that isn't good enough for a top level team. And the worry I have, I don't want to sound fatalistic, but the worry I have is that you look at teams like Wolves, who've had 1 season in the Premiership. Newcastle might be bought out. I don't want to kind of, it's all doom and gloom. But we're a lot closer to being a top 8 team than a top 4 team, I think, at the moment. And that's the worry I have.
Yeah, absolutely. Pavlos, thank you so much for your call, mate. Really appreciate it.
Cheers, mate.
And
keep up the good work, yeah?
Cheers, mate.
Take care, mate. Cheers. Bye-bye.
That was Pavlos there. Lots of interesting points. Let's move on to the next caller. So many to get through this evening. Don't forget, if you want to take part, all you need to do is DM us on Twitter at Chronicles_AFC. If you're watching on YouTube, a big hello to you guys. Don't forget to smash the like button. And of course, a big hello to those tuning in afterwards on the podcast edition as well. Right, let's hit the next caller. Okay, we're going to move on to the next one. Not getting an answer there. Bear with me 1 second. We're going to dial this one. I really need to find a better way of doing this. I know I say this every week, and for next season, I promise we're going to look at putting in a phone line so you guys can dial directly. That is the plan for next season. But let's hit up our next caller.
Hello.
Good evening. You're on the Chronicles of a Gooner, mate. Introduce yourself. Where are you contacting us from?
So I'm Charlie. I'm 20 and I'm from Surrey. I was on the show last week.
Welcome back, Charlie. How you doing? What do you want to say?
So yeah, I'm obviously pretty devastated by what happened last night. I don't know where to start really. I was just I guess it's the with Arsenal, it's the hope that kills. I was walking into work yesterday morning, and I was dreaming of Champions League football and the signings that we could possibly get, and it's the players that convinced me that they would do it, and like all Arsenal fans, they convinced me, and then I saw that shambles, and I'll openly admit that I was in tears as I was watching it. When I watched the 4 goals go in, it was like watching your missus cheat on you 4 times.
That's a bit extreme, isn't it?
That's how it felt. Like it was just a sucker punch.
But
like,
have you experienced that to know that that's what it feels like?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Okay, fair enough.
But unfortunately for me as well, and I was saying this to my mum, that because of my age, the earliest sort of I remember the 2005 FA Cup final ish, but the earliest real memory of a final was the 2006 one, with the Champions League. So all I've ever really known is sort of like mediocrity and just tears. Like it'd be so nice to just feel some joy for once as an Arsenal fan. But it feels a million miles away right now.
So I mean, it feels like you've been cheated on, basically, and that's a great analogy. I love that. But what's the way forward, Charlie? What needs to happen?
What doesn't need to happen? A lot of things. Most of that squad for me, they don't know what it feels like for us fans to when we lose. They don't feel the pain, and for me it says it all. I was watching last night. I didn't turn the screen off. I continued watching because I wanted to see their reaction. Lucas Torreira is probably the only guy in that team that can't speak a word of English, and when he came off, he was in floods of tears. He sprinted off in floods of tears, and on the sidelines, he was covering his face up because he didn't want to be seen. And then Petr Cech, and I have to hold my hands up here. I didn't want him to play. I was one of the guys that saying, "What are you doing?" But at the end, when you could see how professional he is, and he cared. You could see how much he cared because he was in tears as well. And it says it all that those are the 2 players that showed the most emotion and showed how much they cared. Out of all of the players, that they're not the most glamorous of players. They're not our best players. They're not probably the most well-known ones, but they showed the most, and I think that shows Arsenal up to a T. Really, it's just damning for the whole thing, and the fact that Stan Kroenke didn't even turn up as well for a major final.
But Charlie, this is my point. Everybody's talking about Stan Kroenke not turning up. Why is everybody so surprised? He never turns up. He never turns up. He never has. And his son Josh was there, who has quite clearly been put forward as the guy who's going to handle Arsenal. So why are you so surprised? And why is everybody so surprised? It's not personal to you. Why is everybody so surprised that he wasn't there? Did people expect him to be there? Because I didn't.
Honestly, I didn't expect him to be there, but it's basically the hope, in my opinion. It's the hope that we're going to be proved wrong. He's going to turn up, and it's the hope that he's going to invest in the club. And we all know that the likelihood is he'll do fuck all. I mean, let's be honest about it. But you just hope and pray because we love the club, and we just want what's best for it. And it's just you just hope that it will turn around and he'll turn up. He'll start showing. Start showing that he cares for the club, and that he'll invest. But we all know it won't. So I think quite a few Arsenal fans need a bit of reality check as well. To be honest, if I'm being really honest about it.
Okay, great stuff, Charlie. Thank you very much for your call, mate, and we'll be glad to have you on again soon.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
Cheers, mate. All the best.
Bye-bye.
That was Charlie from Surrey. Let's move on to the next caller. Here we go. Here we go.
Hello.
Good evening, mate. You're on the Chronicles of a Gooner. Introduce yourself.
Hello, Harry. It's Claude, mate. How are you, mate?
How you doing, Claude? The voice of reason. Welcome to the show, mate. What do you want to say? What do you want to get off your chest this evening?
Oh, man, that's got to be the worst feeling I've ever had after a game, mate. Last night, mate, it was awful, wasn't it, mate? Sorry, mate, I just turned this down. It was an awful feeling last night, mate. I've never felt that so bad after a game. And I'm still feeling it now. I just don't know what's going on now. It's time for a change, mate. Don't you think?
Mate, Claude, you know as well as anybody that I've always been unsure on Unai Emery, and this season has not done anything in changing my mind. I think that we completely bottled it towards the end of the season, and for me, that's unforgivable. And you know, you've been consistent as well, and for that, I admire you and I value your opinion greatly. But what's the way forward now in terms of a change?
Well, it's not just you and I, Henry. I think a lot of these players, I think most of these players need to be cleared out of the club. I think the whole thing has to be torn up and start again, mate, right from scratch. We're in a mess, mate. The only way we can do it now is just scrapping the whole lot and starting all over again, mate. I saw last night I keep hearing about these so-called world-class strikers we've got, yeah? They were absolutely world-class strikers. Turn it on in big games, mate. They don't go missing. There was the first... That game, to me, they were playing that game. It seemed like they were playing a pre-season friendly.
It felt like one, didn't it? It felt like a pre-season friendly.
It was awful. It was no one seemed to be caring. This is like our last chance to get to the Champions League, and we blew it completely. And I just don't know I don't know. I think these players have got the mentality to play for our football club.
What do you think, Claude? Yeah. What do you think will be the knock-on effect of us not making the Champions League? Are we gonna be restricted even more in terms of our spending? And
well, yeah. What doesn't give me confidence when I hear him say that there's players there that he thinks are improving, and I just don't see it. I don't see it at all. And I'm not being funny. He gambled on our league, but he could not get one win out of Palace, Brighton, Wolves, yeah, and Leicester, yeah. One win would have got us into that Champions League, yeah. Yeah, he gambled on the Europa League and he come unstuck. So for me, he has to pay the price. But what's going to happen? I've got no confidence. I heard the other night them two, that Raul and what's his name?
Raul and Vinay. Yep.
Yeah, they're speaking as if we're in terrific condition. What are they seeing? What are they seeing, Harry?
I wish I could tell you, mate.
We're a mess. We are a mess, Harry.
I think the question is more, what are they smoking? If you ask me.
I mean, I just don't understand. Everyone going on about improvement. Where's the improvement?
You're right. You're absolutely right, mate.
And I'm hearing people last night blaming because he played Czech, but Czech was our best player. He was our best player last night.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
And we lost 4-1. What does that tell you?
Exactly, mate. Exactly.
4-1 in a cup final. Two cup finals. We haven't turned up. The last two cup finals, we haven't turned up. What does that tell you about the mentality of these players?
Weak.
Two cup finals. The last two cup finals we played, we haven't turned up. What does that tell you about the mentality of these players?
It tells you it's bad, Claude. It tells you it's poor.
If this coach cannot motivate them, what's he doing there? I'm hearing people telling me. I had an argument with Turkish this morning on Twitter. He's saying he's done a good job. Well, where's he done a good job? Minimum requirement this year for me, maybe I'm asking too much, was actually to qualify for the Champions League. And with 8 games to go, we've got a run in there. That running, and we've only got 8 points from that, 8 to 10 points on that running.
Yep.
It's a joke. And now they're saying, oh, it's not the managers. The managers is the what is he there for then?
That's
If
right,
he
mate.
can't motivate these players, what's the point? What's the point of him being there?
You're absolutely right, Claude. I'm gonna have to leave it there and move on. But thank you so much for coming on, mate. Really, really appreciate it. And as always, some valid points.
Mate. Cheers, mate.
All the
Take care.
best, mate. Bye bye. That was Claude. Lots of you will recognise that voice from Arsenal Fan TV. Thank you very much to Claude for taking part. Just while I get the next call ready, got some comments coming in via message. This one comes from Tony Chelepis, who says that it's a real problem, Unai Emery's lack of grasping the language. The English thing is a real problem. He's not able to get his points across effectively. What do you guys think about that? I appreciate that it is very hard to come to a country and speak another language, but I have to agree. I think when we watch his post-match interviews, I don't understand what on earth he's saying. So I can imagine that the players have a similar issue. Right, let's get on to the next call. Here we go. And guys, don't forget to keep hitting that like button on YouTube. Thank you so much. Good evening, mate. You're on the Chronicles of a Gooner, my friend. Introduce yourself and where are you contacting us from?
Hi, Harry. I'm Jack, and I'm calling you from Cambridge.
Hi, mate. Welcome to the show. What do you want to say? What do you want to get off your chest?
Well, in general, I'm really disappointed, but to be totally honest, I'm not surprised at what happened. It's just every single time we're like grabbing at string. We're about to grab the string, and then the string snaps. It's kind of like that, if you get my drift. But yeah, going into work today, it was like my head was down. I was just trying to avoid everyone. Luckily, my manager wasn't in, so I could hide from him. But it's just for the final, everything was going our way. Obviously, we saw the Sarri kicking the hat. He went off storming, and then we had Kante was 50-50 not going to play, and then some people were saying, yeah, Kante's definitely not going to play. Then they had Rudiger out, they had Loftus-Cheek out, who's been really good. And then saw the first half, we kept Hazard quiet, a couple of chances, but kept him quiet. And I was like, okay, second half, this is it now. Hopefully we could go back to how we were at the first half of the season, being second half FC kind of. Then in comes the ball, Giroud, great goal, but just sloppy defending again.
Were we wrong to let Giroud go?
Well, it's kind of a hard question, because I'd say yes, judging it about like what Aubameyang did and the reason we had to get Giroud out to get Aubameyang getting us all these goals, all these assists, etc. But in the end, it's not paid off. Now Giroud, he could have missed or half the chances, he could have scored the same chances. We just don't know, do it? It's just a joke, to be honest. I'm annoyed.
I agree with you. And what did you make of Giroud's the video that came out after where he said, "Thank you, Arsenal"? Lots of people getting triggered about that, making a massive deal out of it. But to be honest with you, mate, it doesn't really bother me in the slightest. And we done a review show this morning, first thing this morning. If you haven't checked that out, please do so. It's on our YouTube channel. It's on all the podcast apps. And it was with Arsenal legend Nigel Winterburn. And he said that he didn't have a problem with opposition players celebrating regardless of their past. At the end of the day, he's a professional footballer. He's there to win for his team. I didn't take issue with it. Did you?
Nah, not really. I kind of liked his celebration. Didn't like run off and celebrate or slide. He just put like his hands in the air, which I kind of get because he had a lot of respect for the club.
Yeah.
Obviously, he wasn't treated that well. But then the video of him like drinking beer and like saying thanks to Arsenal, etc. It's kind of expected, really. Like it just gives us more of like the banter club, so to say. Now we're back playing Jacuzzi FC with Man United next season. But yeah, I think the positives of the game, obviously, Czech, who's leaving his final game. I thought Iwobi and Willock both came on. They both tried like the hardest. I thought they were both running at defences. They were trying to get shots off. Iwobi's goal, consolation goal, but it was a great goal. Then we had like, I hate to say this because I know everyone's been saying this and it's all over Twitter. Players like Lacazette, Aubameyang, who virtually, apart from the Lacazette kind of /dive/tackle by Kepa for the penalty, didn't really do anything. And the same with Ozil as well, walking off the pitch and then being filmed on the bench saying like the P word to Emery.
It's all right, mate. You can say it. You can say it. There's no watershed.
Okay. I wasn't too sure. Yeah, just calling Emery a pussy. I don't know if that's true or not, if it's just things like that. But the thing is with Ozil, I feel, it's kind of relating back to like last season where with like the Wenger out, Wenger in, etc. Fans are like saying, well, yeah, there's basically just a divide in the fans again between if we should keep Ozil, sell Ozil. And I still think that even if Ozil, this is the thing we've got to look at, is even if Ozil isn't an Arsenal player next season or in January, etc., we're still going to have players. No, not players. Sorry, we're still going to have fans with bums in the seats, fans watching all across the globe, and we're still going to have like a new player that comes in, whoever it is. He's still going to sell shirts, etc. Still going to bring in a social media following, but yeah, it's Arsenal Football Club, not Ozil FC. If you get my drift.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right, mate. And thanks for your call. Really, really appreciate it. And we hope to have you on again soon. I know you're a regular listener, so a big thank you to you as well. Without you guys, this podcast is nothing. And the growth we've seen in the last year or so has been unreal. So I want to say thanks to every single one of you that's tuned in now, in the past, or will tune in the future. So big thanks, mate.
All right, thanks, Harry. Have a good evening.
You too, mate. All the best. Brilliant. Lovely call. And a big thank you to Michael Harneman, who has made a donation via the super chat feature on YouTube. A big thank you to you, Michael. Really, really appreciate it. Michael says, hi, mate. Still hurting from yesterday. So many players need to go. It's unreal. The mentality was awful, as always, after going behind. I can't disagree with any of that, mate. You're absolutely right. A big thanks for your donation, of course. Let's move on to the next caller. We got so many this evening and great response to this show, and we're really, really thankful for that. Let's go to the next caller. Okay, we're not getting an answer on that number. Let's move on to the next one. Here we go. Apologies for the delay, guys. Here we go.
Hi, Harry.
Good evening, mate. Welcome to the Chronicles of a Gooner. What's your name and where are you contacting us from?
It's Andrew Armistead from Hinckley.
Welcome back to the show, mate. How are you? What do you want to say?
Oh, well, I mean, I don't think I've ever felt as bad after a game in all of my time that I've been following Arsenal, to be honest, after yesterday. I'm going to calm down a bit now. But I'm going to echo a few points. I'll go through a few points pretty quick because I know they've been discussed already this evening. But Emery, I personally, I've never taken to him all season. I've mentioned it a few times. It's not a new thing for me. Similar to yourself, I've been going on about it for a few months. I've not seen anything in him apart from a few flashes where the team have performed this season. I just think he's just ain't got it. He's not earning his wage, Barry. He's earning a lot of money each year. And managers, you pay the top managers around Europe because of what they can do during a game, how they can motivate their players and get the best out of players. And although we've done it a few times this season, it's not enough. I mean, he's basically had the half-time yesterday. I think we were ahead on points at half-time yesterday at 0-0. I think we were slightly the better team.
Yep. And
he gets that half-time. That's where they earn their money, these top managers. And they come out in the second half. We last 4 minutes before we go behind. I mean, Kos has been overall he's been a good defender for us. No one can argue with that. But he makes so many mistakes as well. I mean, he makes similar mistakes in certain cases that Mustafi gets absolutely slaughtered for. Yep. I mean, let's face it. He lost he made a mistake in the semi-final last year, which cost us the game. He made a mistake in the I don't know what it was called at the time, the League Cup final against Birmingham. It was, he lost us that game as well. That was a final. Yesterday, cost us that first goal. I'm not slaughtering the guy, but he's not good enough for Arsenal anymore. You know, we've got to get. I mean, pretty much the whole team yesterday, the whole first team squad, I think I'll be happy to get rid of, apart from, you know, a few of the youngsters. I mean, it's funny, yesterday, I think the only ones that came out of it with any real credit was Willock and Iwobi. You think you've got to give a benefit of the doubt, really, to Maitland-Niles, because he's playing in the right position. He's very young and inexperienced. It's not his fault he's having to play that role. But all those three that I've just mentioned, is it any coincidence that they're from the academy?
Yeah.
I mean, they cared more. I mean, when Willock came on, he did so much more in those 10 minutes than Ozil's done. Well,
he did miss a sitter, though, didn't he? He did miss a sitter.
He missed a sitter, but can you blame him? He's 19 and he's put into a final. Great, but he got into that position. I mean, when did the last time Ozil got into that position and actually had a shot?
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
He's done a lot more in those 10 minutes than Ozil's shown us for a long, long time. I mean, and I think that, I mean, Torreira, I'd hang on to him because, I mean, at least he cared, but he had a very poor game yesterday. He's had a poor end of the season. And it's got to be down to, you know, the manager. Emery, he's just, I mean, he's doing my head in. He's basically, like I said, he's not earning his money. We got into the position where we should have finished third, and he let it slip. And I'm not just blaming him. It's all these players as well. But he's got to shoulder an awful lot of the blame. And yes, at the beginning of the season, we wouldn't have expected, maybe, and we would have let him off if we weren't expecting to be in that position. But we were in that position, and it can't be ignored. Our end of the season was absolutely diabolical. And then yesterday, I don't think I was over exaggerating it about a week ago when I said that yesterday was probably our biggest game that we've had, well, at least in decades, because of what it could mean longer term. And with Wolves, Everton, and possibly Newcastle now as well, and Leicester, all going to be strengthening. Obviously, Spurs are definitely going to be strengthening this summer. Man United are going to be spending hundreds of millions of pounds. Luckily, Chelsea can't. But we're going to be caught up, Harry, with this manager and this team. We're going to be overtaken, and then we'll be battling with what everyone calls the Everton Cup, the battle to try and finish seventh. And we can't allow that, can we? Our club is stagnating, and the only way we're going is down under this manager, and we need to act fast. So
what would you do, Andrew? Would you change the manager?
Yes, I would 100% change
this summer or next summer. You talking about instantly?
I'll change him tomorrow. And I'll tell you who I'll put in charge. I would promote Ljungberg. Okay,
interesting.
He's doing. I mean, I've followed the under 23, so you know, and he bleeds for the club. He's got passion. He's got his ideas. I've heard him interviewed several times, and his ideas make sense. He's a born winner. He's an invincible. He knows the club. He knows all of those academy players inside out. He's got the under 23s playing fantastic football.
Yep.
And I'll just get him in. What have we got to lose, Harry?
We had the pleasure of interviewing Freddie Ljungberg on this show as well a little while back. I went down to watch the under 23s, and he was very kind enough to take some time out and talk to me after the game, and that featured on one of our podcasts a couple of months back. He certainly seems like he's on the right track. Me personally, though, I think it's a little bit early to give him a job like the Arsenal first team. I think that's a little bit too big for him, but you know, it's a valid point.
You need to sink or swim, though, don't you? And you know, he could well be. I mean, when Guardiola took over from Barcelona, not the same example, I know. He didn't have any experience, but they took a punt on him. He had a lot better players to work with. Don't get me wrong. I'm not making that comparison. Yeah. But then, you know, in a smaller example, you got Lampard going into Derby, virtually getting them up to the Premier League. Didn't quite make it, but he had a very good shot at it. You sometimes have to make these gambles, but people instantly assume as well. What annoys me about, who else is available? Allegri's not going to come to us. We've only got so much to spend, blah, 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 blah. Why do we have to look at people like Allegri and all these massive names from around Europe in our situation? You know, because we need to act now to be able to come back to the club that we once were. We're playing catch up now. Yeah. I know that I'll never accept the fact that we are a Europa League team. But the reality is we are at the moment, we need to get back to where we were.
Totally.
And we don't have to look abroad for one of these flashy name managers. I mean, you look at some people like Chris Wilder, who've done amazing jobs, you know, in the Championship with Sheffield United. Their team is well organised, well drilled. With the players that he's had at his disposal, I'm not saying him specifically, but there's managers out there. And you look at the guy, you know, there's Southampton always bring in some managers that do fantastically well. Swansea did before, you know, managers never heard of, and then they suddenly do brilliantly and get poached. There's managers out there without these mega names that we could work with. And we could also take a lot of those players from teams like, you know, from the Championship, etc. There's players down. We need to get rid of this snobbery.
Yep.
We need to get rid of all this crap from our team. And we need to make sure with the amount of money that we can get for these players, I don't know how much it'll be, but we've got to take whatever we can. And we've got to strengthen in the market right down the spine of the team, plus a left back definitely as well. And then we can build out, we can flood out the rest of the wide areas. And I mean, we'll hopefully keep our two forwards. I won't want to get rid of them in a million years, but we can't replace those goals overnight.
That's right.
With the rest of the squad, we've got so many good youngsters that we can just try and work with and to fill out the rest of the squad.
Absolutely.
But we've got to get that strong spine, but we can work with the rest of it. And we've got to stop this snobbery. We've got to act now, and we've got to work with the money that we've got, you know, and the players that we've got. But I think the players that we bring in to strengthen the spine through the team, I really do think we should look at, you know, players that are currently plying their trade in this country. I know they ain't cheap, but we need players that can work now.
Okay, so your answer is to look closer to home. Andrew,
100%.
Go ahead. Final point. Go ahead, mate.
No, I said 100%. Yeah, and I think, I mean, I was listening to the after you listening to your one first, of course, with Winterburn earlier on. Cheers, mate. I listened to the Arse blog afterwards as well, and they were saying about we've got to, you know, we've got to. It all comes from the top. This isn't just a problem with Emery. It isn't just a problem with the players. It's the person that owns the club now as well. And they gave the example of Liverpool of a few years ago, and they were in exactly the same position as ourselves. And the Liverpool fans, same as us, they were absolutely fuming about the ownership of the company, the club rather, and they did something about it in the end. And they stamped their feet and shouted louder, and it got louder and louder over a period of time until they got their way.
Yep.
And the owners did sell the club, and they said, "Well, we need to do something like that, but we're Arsenal, and we don't really do things like that. We're a little bit more timid. Who's going to do something like that?" Well, I thought, fuck it, and I did it, and I set up a petition online.
Yep.
With that minute, and I've got it up and running, and hopefully, you know, a lot of your listeners and the followers have got Twitter will sign that petition. I'm not stupid, and I ain't going to get the Cronkies out of the club by doing that. But it's a little start. It's a baby step.
Yep.
To start something, so that we, as the fans, can actually get our voices heard, and they can start listening to us for once, saying that we aren't happy with the way the club's being run.
Yep.
And we've got to do something to move this thing forward before we start getting worse and worse. And we can't wait for next season. We can't give him another summer. I don't trust him to get the right players. You know, there's something wrong there, the way he can't motivate this team.
Great stuff, Andrew. Thank you so much for joining us. And guys, head over and sign his petition. I'm sure he'll put the link in the chat if you don't mind, Andrew, and we'll get as many signatures on there as we possibly can. Thanks again, mate, and we'll speak again soon.
Cheers, Harry. Take care.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
That was Andrew from Hinckley. Let's move on to our next caller.
Hello, mate.
Good evening, mate. Welcome to the Chronicles of a Gooner. Introduce yourself and where are you contacting us from?
I'm Danny from Burkamp Wonderland in sunny Manchester in Cambridgeshire.
Danny boy, how's it going, mate?
I'll tell you how it's going. I'm watching the show and I'm thinking, what kind of tip would say he's going to come on the show and then not answer the phone, and then I check my phone and my WhatsApp calls are on mute.
It happens, mate.
What an absolute tool.
It happens. You know, it would have been a problem on the first one that we done when we had about 3 callers.
Yeah.
But, you know, as I said, it's going well, and we're thankful to all of those that are dialing in. Danny,
it's going very well. What you're doing there is really, really hard work. Don't ever say, "Oh, I'm sorry about this or that." You're doing all this on your own. That, on a radio show, they would have a group of about 5 or 6 people doing the job that you're doing. You're doing a great job, mate.
Thank you very much, mate. I'm hoping, well, I don't know, because I'm not sure, but, you know, what are you going to defend Unai Emery, maybe?
Yeah, I think I will do. I mean, I've agreed with everything that everybody has said, but I think maybe you need to look at it from a slightly different point of view. Of that starting 11 yesterday against Chelsea, only 2 of those were Emery's men, Socrates and Torreira. That's it. The rest of that team were Wenger leftovers. He brought on one of his own people in Guendouzi, who this first season's had a good season, but hasn't really created much, still been evolving into the player that he's going to be in the future. We were up against the world's most expensive goalkeeper, who's soon going to be Hazard, one of the world's most expensive players, one of the most creative players in the world. Giroud, who couldn't hit a cow's arse with a banjo when he was playing for us, but has got 11 or 12 goals in 14 games in the Europa League, top goal scorer. You got 40, 50 million pound Jorginho there. You got Kante, who's won the league with 2 different teams. You've got Pedro, magnificent player. And you got people like us. We can't do anything. I mean, I'm not happy with Ozil, but I've been moaning about Ozil on Twitter all day. If Ozil was on 50 grand a week, no one would give a flying shit what he does on the pitch because you don't care. But when he's earning 350 grand and Mkhitaryan is earning 225 grand, that is 5 decent players that have come and play for us. And you saw the effect that Iwobi had when he went out there. Iwobi was magnificent. He's been so good this season. And it is a player who's going to come on leaps and bounds next season. But a couple of people have said that when Maitland-Niles and Kolasinac got the ball, they're running down at dead ends. But you have to look at our central midfield. Torreira and Xhaka, they're not creative players. In that hole, you need a Ramsey to give the ball to Ozil, to give the ball to the front 2. And if you take out a major part of that process, then that's why we're struggling. And Ozil probably quite rightly gets fed up because they're not giving him the balls, are they? You've got Xhaka having pot shots from the middle of nowhere, Torreira running his arse off, and I think we need to give Emery another season because although, I mean, just look at it, next season we're ruined. You know that season when Leicester won the league and everyone was saying, as Arsenal fans, that was our one chance to win the Premier League. Yeah, it was. This season was our one chance to get back in the Champions League because next season, Man City and Liverpool, they're gone. Chelsea, they're going to have a fortune behind them. Spurs, if the only reason Spurs are fourth is because Harry Kane's missed half a season injured. Yep. Man United are going to chuck more money at it than any of those teams have got. We're 6th if we're lucky. Wolves are catching us up because they've got a great bloke who's getting all the best Portuguese players. Next season, we're not going to do that. So next season, we're going to be going our 3rd season in Europa League. That's our own way to get back into the Champions League because we're not going to have the money to go and buy that. But looking at when we did the Invincible, the 03-04 season, at the end of that season, for next season, we let 30 players leave the club, whether they be youth players, first team. There was 9 players that had played regularly in the first team on and off that we let go. We can do that again. That's the kind of culling that we need at the club. Emery needs to have the money and the wages to invest in his own players, his own men. And he's worked through the lower leagues in Spain, started off in the 3rd tier of Spanish football, brought teams up. He can do that. He just needs the time. And he needs people like Ozil out of the club to free up the wages and not strop around the pitch like a child for 90 minutes, game after game.
Great points. Great points. And
there you go.
It was lovely to hear someone on the other side of it as well, because, yeah, Danny, you know, as well as anybody, you know, throughout the season, I've stuck to my guns regarding Emery. And it's not, and as I tweeted last night, immediately after the game, it's not personal. It's not that I don't like the guy. It's not that I don't want him to succeed. I just, at the very beginning, I thought, right, let me give him a chance. Let's see what we're going to get. Let's try and work out what it is he's trying to do. And I'd compare him. I know you said that Chelsea have spent X amount of money and they've got a higher caliber of player. Let's not beat around the bush. There's no doubt about that. But where I kind of say that Emery has kind of let himself down is when you look at Maurizio Sarri, who started the season wonderfully, had a dip, and then people were saying, oh, he's stubborn. He's one-dimensional. He won't change. But the fact that he rode it through that tough period and made sure that he did embed his way of playing at the end of the season has been a benefit to Chelsea because they finally got into the swing of things towards the end. Yeah, they weren't great like everybody else, but they managed to pip us. They managed to finish above Spurs in the end as well. They went to a League Cup final and they've won the Europa League. So for me, that's a good season. And the fact that Sarri stuck to his guns has paid off. And that's kind of, that's my issue with Emery. I look at the team and I think, right, next season, what do we need? Well, I can't tell you what we need because I can't tell you what it is that he's trying to do. And I think that the club's hierarchy will probably be looking at that in the same way. And I think they were never sure about him in the first place. That's why there's this option to terminate his contract after 2 years. And perhaps if we see by Christmas that things aren't going well, it could be the end for him. What do you think of that?
I think you got a very good point. His entire season, his career at Arsenal was based on getting into the Champions League. He muffed it up in the last few games of the season when we could have easily have done it. And you're completely right. You're 100% right that if he hasn't won, he hasn't come here and done what he should have done and get us in the Champions League. So the club got quite rightly, if they wanted to sack him tomorrow, get rid of him, give someone else a go, because they had one mission: get Champions League football. You failed on it on two fronts. And you were right about Sarri. Sarri has stuck to his guns all season. The fans don't like Sarri ball. He likes it. Every single game this season, they've played a 4-3-3 attacking formation. Every single player at that club knows you're playing in this position. Look at Alonso, doesn't like playing left wing back, and all the other players. They know if you're going to be playing in this position. At Arsenal, the tactics can change 3 or 4 times a game. He's like a modern Tinkerman, isn't he? Like another Ranieri.
He's the new Ranieri, but he's not. I don't know. He's not as lovable as Ranieri, is he? You don't want to squeeze his cheeks like you do with Ranieri. It's like a granddad Ranieri. Yeah. You're
probably right. But this summer is just going to be so important now because we are going to be scraping around for the scraps that people don't want. Players that are out of contract, players that want free transfers. I just hope that we don't end up with another 11 Lichtsteiners, because if we do that, then we're going to struggle even to get Europa League next season. It's going to be such a big summer for us. It's going to be one of the biggest summers in Premier League history for Arsenal because so much needs to be done. And then we've not even covered the backroom staff. There's rumours today that Shad Forsyth might be going off to Milan because he was seen, his missus took a picture of him when they were in Milan together, and that tweet was going around. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. We still haven't got a bloke, what's that job? Head director of football? What's that job called?
Oh, I've lost track of all the terms.
The bloke, yeah, that's it. I've got I should make a note of it all. But there's so many jobs outside of the first team and the manager that need filling, and they're not being filled, and people are leaving, and players are leaving, and it's just going to make for an interesting season, Harry.
It will indeed. Danny, thank you so much. And for those of you that don't know, Danny heads up the Bergkamp Wonderland podcast. Is a fantastic Arsenal podcast. Danny, how can people find you guys and subscribe to your work?
Yeah, just go and look on Twitter for the AFC podcast, or just go into Google or your search engine of choice and just type in Bergkamp Wonderland, and you will find it, and you will probably regret it.
I'm sure you won't. Brilliant stuff, Danny. Thank you so much, mate.
Cheers, mate. Bye.
That was the brilliant Danny there. And do check out his podcast. It is fantastic. It's been running for quite a while now, and it's one of the better Arsenal shows out there. No doubt about that. A comment from Harry in the chat I want to touch on. He says, and I like this analogy, he says, how can you soar like an eagle when you fly with turkeys? This roster is nowhere near CL football. The board and Unai Emery have to be cruel and chop 8 to 10 players this summer, crushed after yesterday. You're absolutely right, mate. It is a very bitter pill to swallow. It's very difficult to get our heads around the fact that we went to a European final and we got slaughtered in the end. Right, let's move on to the next caller. Hi, mate. Good evening. Welcome to the Chronicles of a Gooner. Introduce yourself. Where are you contacting us from?
Hi, Harry. This is Pramod here. I'm contacting from London.
Welcome, mate. What do you want to say? What do you want to get off your chest this evening?
Yeah, really disappointed with yesterday's results, Harry. I thought at least one of the big names that we have will turn up, and none of them cared even to turn up. So very, very disappointed. The other thing that I wanted to talk to you about, Harry, is I've seen some tweets from some other people or some of the fans here that they want Emery out.
Yep.
I'm still a little confused between Emery out or Emery in. not jumping into the bandwagon because I've been an Arsenal out for a very long time. So the only thing I think, I was just listening to your show, and the Bergkamp Butterland guy, Danny, I think he actually took a lot of words out of my mouth. And that's the same point that I wanted to talk about about Emery. The only analogy I can give, Harry, is that I don't think these players can be motivated. They have been in the comfort zone for a very long time, and they need some kick up their asses, and they need to be shown the door if that's the way that. And I hope our board and our gives the power to Emery to do what he needs to do in the summer. That's my only hope.
Is Emery the man to do that, though, mate? Is Emery the man to give them that kick up the arse?
I think so. I think he was. I was watching him especially in the trophy presentation, and I felt he was fuming. He wanted it for a fourth time very, very bad, and it looked to me that he wants to get a lot of people out. And Harry, I was also looking at I was just going through the Arsenal.com page, and I was looking at our first team, or supposedly the first team. And I was just noting down some names I would get out, and I would keep. I would some of them probably would retire as well. And I came out with around 17 names from the first team. I'm sure some of them are on loan. Some of them will come back from loan as well. So there is around 17 players which probably we might need to cash in, and it's not very surprising for me as well, Harry, because if you remember, after Klopp's first season, he as far as I know, he got around 9 to 10 players out of Liverpool, and he invested in probably 6 players. Mane being one of them, and I think he bought Benteke and a few others. So there has to be a reduction in the squad, but he also promoted few players, and he got some free transfers, and that's how we need to manage this, according to me. Unless Josh Kroenke and Stan Kroenke thinks that you can take 150 million and invest in the club.
It's not going to happen, though, is it? It's very unlikely that they're going to do that, and that's my I don't know. I probably might be shouted at by the Arsenal fans, but Harry, I've been trained to look at some of the financial statements of companies, and I've looked at the financial statements of Arsenal for the last 2 or 3 years. Yep.
Actually, there are 2 points I wanted at least from my way of understanding the financial statement. There is no evidence that he has taken any money out from Arsenal. Okay, so there has been no agency fee, or there has been no ownership fees or anything that he has taken out from Arsenal.
Okay.
So that's one point. The second point is the next contention point for him is that he stopped buying players. But if you look at our last 3 seasons, we have spent around 92 million in the 16-17, 16-17, 92, around 100 in the first year, 92 in the second year, and around 70 in the last year. And the only thing is, in the second last season, or the penultimate season that we had, he reinvested all the money that he got from James of Sanchez and Chamberlain and people like that. But he has been there. He has not stopped investment as far as I can see. I don't know if somebody else is doing some other analysis there, but I cannot see him taking out money or even stopping people from investing money in players. And if you remember, people like Wenger were saying no, the owners were completely backing him, but I don't know where the
I think you're right, mate. I think you're right when you say that there has been money spent. It's just been spent badly. And the problem, I think, that a lot of Arsenal fans have, and that I certainly have anyway, I can't speak for everybody else, but my view on it is that he has kind of been okay in terms of the funds and giving people money to go and buy players, but he doesn't apply enough pressure on the manager. He doesn't apply enough pressure on those responsible for the results. And that's probably where I'd fault Stan Kroenke more than the lack of investment.
That I'll agree with you, because I think he doesn't have that kind of accountability structure or the governance structure in the club, that people are accountable for their actions. So so people should be accountable for their action. And the second thing which I really don't like about him is he doesn't have any mechanism to hear the people's voice, which is the customer for him. At the end of the day, the fans are the customer for him, and he doesn't have any mechanism where people can go out and speak to him. Or I don't know if it's supposedly that there has to be an AGM, but he doesn't have to do it at the moment because he's a sole owner of this club.
Yep.
So I don't know. So that is where I feel that there is a disconnect between the fans, the club, and the owner. But yeah, those two allegations, he's guilty as charged.
Yeah, absolutely. Pramod, thank you very much for coming on, mate. And all the best.
Thank you, Harry, and lovely show.
Thank you very much.
Doing this, mate.
Thank you, mate. Thank you very much. That was Pramod there, giving us some insight into the Arsenal financials. Just a few comments coming through in the live chat box. This one comes from Raymond Desks. And, I know it's a sad night tonight. We're all upset after the final, but this comment made me laugh. So I'm going to read it out. He says, watching Spurs win the Champions League will be like catching my missus with my brother, and then my missus asking me to apologize for disturbing her. I mean, let's not talk about Spurs winning the Champions League too much, because fingers crossed that doesn't happen, and we don't have to concern ourselves with that, because let's face it, after the way things have gone this week, that is all we need now, isn't it? Right, let's go on to our next caller. Here we go. Good evening, mate. Welcome to the Chronicles of a Gooner. Introduce yourself.
Yep, so it's Chris Davison here. Obviously, people probably recognise me from my work on Twitter and
of course
my blogs
they will,
and stuff.
mate. Of course they will, and for being on this show as well. Chris, it's been a little while, mate. How have you been?
Yeah, of course, disappointed after last night. Really disappointed. Really hurting all day, to be fair. I've been trying to take my mind off things, but when something happens like that after last night and how the season ended overall, it's difficult not to go on angry rants and passionate rants and stuff like that, and you just feel as if you need to get some things off your chest. So in a way, I'm glad you're doing this show tonight, actually.
Do you know what, Chris? I was actually, after the game last night, I thought about not doing it. I thought that I wasn't feeling up to it. I didn't fancy it. And then, but I'd already put a tweet out, and then we got so many, responses from people that were interested in taking part. And I thought, right, can't let everybody down now. Let's do it. And I feel a little bit better for doing it. I'll be honest. What have you made of the whole season? What's your take on the situation? I know you're behind Unai Emery, and, it's nice to hear that side of the argument as well, because I think at the start of the show, we had a lot of people that were kind of on the Emery out wagon. And so, Chris, what do you want to say? Why is it not Emery's fault? And why, are you going to give him more time? And why are you willing to stay patient with him?
Well, look, I think when Emery came in, we all know he was going to take over from Wenger, a manager that had been at the football club for 22 years, was in control of pretty much everything that was happening at the club. But it wasn't only Emery that came in, it wasn't only the managerial change, there was lots of background changes as well, with staff moving on and new ones being brought in. There was a new model club, how they were doing things behind the scenes. So, all at once, a lot was changing, and for any football club, let alone Arsenal, which is a massive football club, it's a big thing, because where there's a manager who's been at the same club for over 20 years and has been in control of many things, and there's that sudden change. It's something that requires a lot of patience and a lot of work. So there was the change of everything going on behind the scenes, but then Emery had to try and the way Arsenal were playing football, the way the players looked at the game and different stuff like that. And it was never, ever going to be a walk in the park for Unai Emery this season. I said right from the start that there's going to be highs and lows, bumpy roads, and lots of questions will be asked of the team, of the manager, of the board. And it's exactly panned out how I expected it to be. I think obviously after last night, it's even more easier to get carried away now and say, look, Unai Emery's not the man for the job. What he's done this season simply isn't good enough. I think if we would have won it last night, everyone would have been totally behind Unai Emery and said, actually, yeah, okay, fair enough. He's done well with what he's got. Unfortunately, we couldn't edge it last night. Chelsea deserved it in the end. And I said today in one of my posts, the fact that quite a lot of those players last night did not turn up in a major European final says a lot about, the group of players that we've got at the moment. And for me, that is the main issue, the mentality of some of these individuals at the club that take it for granted, really think, pretend it's a privilege to play for Arsenal Football Club, whereas I think deep down they couldn't give a damn. And for me, we've got to be ruthless this summer. I know we've mentioned it before about getting rid of Deadwood, getting rid of this, that and the other. We've got to bloody do it this season, Harry, because if not, if we keep being too kind with these individuals and if we're not ruthless enough, then unfortunately this embarrassment is just going to keep going on. Again, for me, Stan Kroenke is at the heart of the problem. He's another massive issue at this football club. And the fact that he wasn't at the final last night just says it all for me. I wasn't expecting him to be there, but again, it just highlights the lack of enthusiasm that he brings across to us fans, lack of interest that it just looks like he's got, or hasn't got, in other words. And he needs to go. He needs to get out of this club because he's running it like a business, and it's damaging the image of Arsenal Football Club. And this is why I feel sorry for Unai Emery, because I really do not think he's going to be backed enough for him to move this club forward.
But Chris,
and
sorry to cut you there, but could we not see this coming? Could we not see that the club was going to be run in the way that it's been run from years and years ago? Did we not know that whatever manager came in had to be able to work on a budget, had to be able to maximize what we already had, as well as bringing in a few players of his own here and there? For me, Unai Emery knew exactly what he was getting into when he took the job, and he felt that he could do it. And ultimately, he hasn't done it for me, because as many people have said already on tonight's show, the objective was to get in the Champions League. We had two blinding opportunities to do it, and we blew them both. So, I mean, I get what you're saying, and I don't solely blame Emery. I want to make this point because everybody thinks I'm on some Emery witch hunt. I'm not. I don't know, mate. I feel like we're giving him a free pass, and any other manager at a club the size of Arsenal wouldn't get that. So why does Emery get one?
I know what you mean, Harry. This is such a difficult subject, because, it's, for me, like I said a moment ago, it was always going to be a season filled with ups and downs. It was never going to be a walk in the park, and because of the lack of investment that we have seen from the board in recent seasons, I think, it was inevitable that we weren't going to, break the bank and bring some big name and it was all going to change everything. We've got to be realistic, and I am going to keep realistic. I'm not going to expect massive things this summer as well. Obviously, there's got to be one or two or a few names that come in to try and boost the depth and quality in certain areas, but it's not going to be a massive summer with big signings. Again, unfortunately, we've got to keep that in mind. I just think the fact that obviously that when Wenger left and when it was announced, it was such a massive thing for not just Arsenal fans, but for the world of football. Everyone was like, blimey, it's actually finally happening. He's going. There's going to be massive change at Arsenal. I think there is, in ways, there's been a big change at Arsenal in the background, but unfortunately not on the football field yet. And don't get me wrong, Unai Emery's got to take some blame for that. He's our head coach at the end of the day, and unfortunately, there has been some things he's tried this season that just haven't worked. But I think that's just part of the parcel of having a new manager come in to try his ideas out. And it was hit or miss this season. It really was. And unfortunately, we didn't get what we wanted in the end with the top four with the Europa League. We were extremely, extremely close, Harry. 2 points off the top four, and it got to the Europa League final. An improvement, obviously, last season with Wenger. But again, we just could not cross that line. And, I'm just hoping now with this summer coming up, there'll be, lots of hard work going on, and something will just click, and we can go again next season, all guns fighting. Because I really hope, and I know you do as well, because I know you're not totally against Unai, and I'm sure we all want him to do really, really well. Of course, we want him to do that. We want things to work out in the end. But things are going to take time, and but for me, that's the big thing. I'm just, it's as hard as it is. I'm a patient fan, and I just realise that Rome wasn't built in a day, and these things are going to take time. It's going to take more pain and more anger to get through this. But we've got to try and stick together, because the last thing I want again is for this fan base to be totally divided and it all goes to pot. We've got to try and stick together. Got to try and stick behind the manager. Give him next season, and then we'll see what was happened after next season and how his work is panned out, because I still just think it's maybe a little bit too early to judge him. But fingers crossed that he can get this team to where it belongs.
Great stuff, Chris. Thank you so much. And like you said at the top, you are on Twitter. You're very active on Twitter, and you're one of the first to break most of the Arsenal news. So, Chris, tell people how they can follow you. You're definitely worth a follow.
Cheers, Harry. Thanks for having me on again. So you can follow me at @CDavison_AFC. Obviously, always keeping fans up to date as much as possible on there. And always a pleasure to be on your show as well, mate.
Thank you very much, Chris. Nice talking to you, and we'll speak again in the very near future, I'm sure.
Cheers, mate. Thank you. Take care.
That was the brilliant Chris Davison. Right, let's move on to another caller. Just a few more to get through. Oh God, we've been running for almost an hour and a half, but you know what? It's flown by, and that's always a good sign, isn't it? All right, let's dial up next caller. Good evening, mate. Welcome to the Chronicles of a Gooner. Introduce yourself, and where are you in touch from?
Hi, my name is Sam. I'm in touch from New Jersey. I'm about 15 minutes from Manhattan.
New Jersey, man. Welcome. How's it going?
It's going good. It's going good. I'm glad I got on this. I'm glad I got on the show.
Great stuff. What do you want to say, mate? What do you want to get off your chest?
So I got a couple hot takes here, man. One thing I want to say is I think Claude was right about everything but one thing, and that was the Aubameyang and Lacazette comments. I think to say that they haven't done I think they've done more than their part. And I think if we qualify for the Champions League through the Premier League, in my mind, this 4-1 loss is forgivable, right? And on paper, we scored enough goals to get where we need to be in the Premier League. As a matter of fact, there's 2 teams that have scored more goals than us in the league this season, and that's City and Liverpool.
Yep.
They're not the issue. And I really don't. I don't think it's that. I don't even think that's subjective. Like, they objectively done their job this season and some. It's the rest of the team. The midfield has no control. There's no organization in the defense. The defenders that we have are making mistakes. We're relying on a 19-year-old to hold down a midfield. I'm telling you, this kid Guendouzi has been a mistake. Okay. I don't think he should have played the major part that he did in that league.
I agree with you there. I don't think signing him was a mistake. I think he's a very good prospect.
No, not signing him. Yeah. I think like his role in the team.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree that he shouldn't have played as much as he has. I totally agree there.
Yeah, so like I just think that Aubameyang and Lacazette, like the amount of goals that we've scored speaks for itself. Like the manager, Unai Emery, couldn't get 11 guys, those 11 players out of our squad to beat Cardiff on a day. He couldn't get them to beat Crystal Palace on a day. He couldn't get them to beat Leicester on a day when he only needed to do one of the 3. You can throw in a couple more games, Wolves and West Ham. Like there's more of these chances. There's a penalty, right? But I hold Emery more accountable for not getting those guys to do a simple task with maximum room for error. I'm sorry, but we had maximum room for error. If you look at that run-in that Claude was mentioning before, right?
Yep.
We have maximum room for error, and the problem with the team is the defense. No defensive player has improved this season. They're all playing the same exact game they were playing last season, and Guendouzi included, as far as I'm concerned. We've conceded 53 goals in the league this season. We scored enough to come third.
Okay, but Sam, let me pull you up on a couple of things there, and you know, for the sake of the argument, you're saying that the strikers have done enough, and I agree with you. They've both had a good season in terms of their outputs. What I would say though is overall, and if I'm not mistaken, I think Arsenal scored, and I know it's not by a lot, but I think we scored less goals in the Premier League this season than we did last year, marginally. So if that is true, and if that is the case, the fact that those two are responsible for so many of those goals, does it tell you that we've got an issue in the rest of the team, in that the rest of the team are not contributing enough, and we need to find a way of being able to hurt teams, not just through our strikers?
Absolutely. I mean, like Aubameyang alone accounts for like just under a third of just under a third, if I'm mistaken. I haven't done the actual math of the calculator. Aubameyang alone, right, a third of those Premier League goals. And you're saying that, like, I mean, not you, but there was a point made before. Like, if we don't get Aubameyang, keep Giroud, you're telling me Giroud is gonna contribute the same amount? I'm sorry, mate. No bloody way in hell. Giroud had his day. He shone in the Europa League, as he probably would have for us. You know what I mean? Like, these two are gems. I'm going a bit dramatic here, but I just think there's no way in hell we should be criticizing them, because after that game, I had my second thoughts. And I'm thinking about all the sitters we missed and the penalty at Spurs. And then I'm thinking, what's reasonable to ask of a striker? Is it reasonable to ask him to make every single sitter every time? Or is it reasonable to ask, I don't know, win the Golden Boot?
Right, you're absolutely right, mate. Some great points, and it's hard to disagree with lots of that. And I mean, just finally, your thoughts on Ozil, because that's been a big talking point tonight. There's a lot of people that want him out, want to move him on, shift him on. His attitude at times does stink, and even as one of his biggest supporters, I have to say that. What do you make of that situation? Would you shift him on?
I got a hot take on Ozil too. I think that Emery deserves the sack more than him. Because Ozil, if anything, has been restrained this season because there was a clash, right? You talked about before, they've obviously fallen out. I'm not buying the back pain stuff. They've obviously fallen out. And as far as I'm concerned, in most of the time that I've seen this guy on the field, he just hasn't been effective in controlling the midfield. But I don't think he's necessarily been given any sort of outlet to play his game. Like, we're talking about two completely different philosophies that I believe was mentioned before. So I was literally the whole time waiting to get on the phone. I was chatting to people in the live chat about how, and they were saying how, like, Ozil has literally, like, he doesn't deserve the money. He's our star man. And one guy said, he kind of agreed with me in a sense, that the manager and the player can't play together. One of them needs to go. And if you're talking about like merit, Ozil stays.
Okay.
He has, what he's given to the club overall is so much more than Emery has given to the club. And I know it's kind of an unfair comparison, and I'm trying to come up with good points on the fly. But Emery, the simplest tasks he's failed. There's nothing screaming at me. There's no game or performance screaming at me where I'm saying Ozil is the reason that we have fallen. Not one game, as far as I'm concerned. Not one game was it solely his fault. That Europa League final, I didn't think he played that bad yesterday. I thought he moved the ball well. I really thought he moved the ball well, and I didn't think he should have come off. It really annoys me when he makes subs at the exact same time every game, unless we're like losing at halftime, and then I'll make a change at halftime. And I think Ozil deserves to stay. And I think we need to find a bloody manager who can play to this guy, who can play to this guy's strengths, who can figure out how to organize a defense, maybe hire some coaching staff, change the coaching staff around, organize a defense, so that Ozil has somebody who can get the ball to him, right? That's my take on Ozil anyway. I just think, as far as I think it's clear that one of them needs to go, and Emery deserves to go more.
Yeah,
way more.
Okay, interesting stuff. Interesting take, and a very different take to what we've heard so far this evening. So
yeah, I've had a lot of time to think, listening to the whole thing. I tried not to repeat any points. I've been trying to keep it interesting.
Great stuff, mate. Sam, thank you so much, mate, and we hope to speak to you again very soon.
Will do, man. See you next season.
Take care, mate. All the best. That was Sam there. What do you make of that? Let me know if you're watching in the live chat. What do you make of Sam's comments that Mesut Ozil deserves to stay more than Unai Emery does? I rate Mesut Ozil as a player. I don't think that is a secret. But, you know, it's hard to defend him, isn't it? After the way he sort of... I don't know. I think I was more disappointed with his attitude last night than his actual performance, and that's kind of a problem, isn't it? You know, it's one or the other, and it's Emery or Ozil at this stage. I truly believe that. I think they clearly don't get on. Let's move on to the next call, which is going to be our last call of the evening. Unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there after this one, so we're going to get over to the next caller. Here we go.
Hello.
Good evening, mate. Thanks for staying patient. What's your name and where are we contacting you from?
It's Ryan and from London.
Welcome, Ryan, mate. Ryan from the Mr. Arsenal podcast.
Yeah.
Great show, mate. How are you doing?
Still recovering from last night's debacle, but yeah, I'm okay. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Thank you very much. What do you want to say tonight?
Just pretty much what Danny said, because I did my review last night. In the end, it was either last night I weren't going to do it at all, and it was just like a massive clear out is maybe it's not just the ones that are going out at the end of a contract. It's the likes of Ozil, Mustafi, Xhaka, Mkhitaryan. It's a complete with the whole, as I said, the whole midfield. Without Ramsey this season, you can imagine what our midfield would be like. And it's gutting that he's going, but it's a big job, and just Emery, but the board to go out and get someone this summer that's going to have the same input as Ramsey would, if not more.
So what's the way forward, Ryan, in your eyes?
As I said, a massive clear out, but sort of take on the model of what Ajax are doing, and they've always done, like invest in their youth, and also taking inspiration from what Klopp did at Liverpool when he first came in, finished 8th in his first season. He went out that summer, brought in Wijnaldum, who'd just been relegated from Newcastle, Mane, who was at Southampton, as good. He wasn't the levels of what he is now, amongst other players. And go look at the Liverpool squad now. I think you can name 4 players in that squad that's still there from when he walked in the club. That's his squad now, and they're now fighting for a European title for the second year in a row.
But would you not say, Ryan,
2 points off the title?
See, Ryan, my issue with the comparison to Klopp is that at least with Klopp, even though he came in that first season, they did finish 8th. You're absolutely right. He did come in October, though, so he wasn't there from the start of the season. But the difference here for me is that when Klopp came in, the Liverpool fans could see what he was trying to do. They could see the style of football. There was a very clear 4-3-3 system. It was about pressing. It was about high energy. And Klopp's energy was, what's the word? It filtered through to the crowd, to the players. I don't get that from Emery. I don't get that same feeling. I even watch Liverpool now sometimes, and I'm envious of the fact that they play with so much energy, that their fans are all right behind them, that they've got that atmosphere at the club. But surely Emery needed to have excited the fans or shown something to give them more faith this season. And for me, he's not done that.
I think what doesn't help him is that he came into a squad. He inherited Wenger's squad. He was only allowed to bring in 4 to 5 players, and the rest of that is Wenger, and he had to work with it, and that was it. The board hasn't helped him at all this year. If the board had done more last summer,
Yeah, exactly.
But now it's time to talk the talk. Or as like Stanley and all that said, next season we're going to have Wolves, Everton, even West Ham, and if Newcastle get taken over for this new guy, they're going to be coming up against us, and we're going to be fighting for staying in the top 10 if we're lucky.
Yeah, absolutely. Some great points. Ryan, thank you so much, mate. I'm going to have to leave it there because we have run out of time this evening. Thank you for coming on and for staying so patient as well. And we'll definitely get you on again in the future.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks for that.
Thanks for the best, mate. Take care.
Yeah, bye.
Right, guys, that brings us to the end of the Fans Phone-In show. Slightly longer than usual. There was lots to say, lots of callers, lots of stuff to get off our chest. Before I forget, I want to remind you, if you haven't already, do check out our video or podcast, depending on how you listen or where you get it from, that we released earlier today, which is a review of the final with Arsenal legend Nigel Winterburn. Extremely proud of that. And thanks again to Nigel for joining me. So do check that out. Please, if you're in the live chat, if you're watching live on YouTube, don't forget to hit that like button before we go. It is really, really important. So many of you watching tonight. So many callers, and we are so grateful. We'll definitely be carrying this on in the new season, no doubt about that. May even sneak a couple more to talk about transfers over the summer, but I'll keep you posted via our Twitter feed, so do follow that at Chronicles_AFC. Thanks again to every single one of you, and we'll be back very, very soon. Until then, guys, take care of yourselves, and fingers crossed Liverpool can do it on Saturday. Come on, you Reds. Cheers. Bye-bye.